We are in Zomba, in Malawi. The city of Zomba used to be the capital of Malawi when it used to be the country of Nyasaland under British colonial rule. After independence, the first president of this country, President Hastings Kamuzu Banda, decided that the capital should be moved from this city of Zomba, which is in the southern part of the country, to Lilongwe, because Lilongwe was viewed as more centrally located. And now Zomba is no longer the capital, although it was at one point remarked to be probably the most beautiful capital in the Commonwealth, in the British Commonwealth. Today we're going to see a few highlights of the city of Zomba, and get to meet some people and see the scenery. And after the Zomba ceased to be the capital of Malawi, the main thing that moved to this city was the main campus of the University of Malawi, the campus that is called Chancellor College, as well as the central offices of the University of Malawi. We are going to see a bit of footage of the Chancellor College campus, just as we're going to talk about, talk with some of the authorities in the University of Malawi Central Administration. Continuing with our discussion of Zomba, when the capital was moved from Zomba to Lilongwe by the regime of President Banda, Zomba became mainly a university town. The main university campus of the University of Malawi is the campus called Chancellor College. I served here as a faculty member in the late 1970s to the early 1980s, and during that time when I pioneered the department with what is now the Department of African Languages and Linguistics, I and my colleagues had our offices right in this building right here, which is reasonably detached from the rest of the campus. And the main campus area is over there, with the Zomba, mountain range in the background. But it was a real pleasure to be able to engage in a fair amount of scholarly work from these surroundings. But this is the main campus of the University of Malawi, Chancellor College, and we'll get occasion to have a look at some of the other facilities. I'm still at the University of Malawi in Zomba, and today I have the pleasure of talking to the University Registrar, Mr. Wokomaatani Malunga. And Mr. Malunga has had an illustrious career, not just as an administrator, but also as a poet, and also someone who has devoted a fair amount of his life to promoting the local language or literacy and literary activity in the local language, especially Chichewa, the national language, or at least the default national language of this country. And so I'm gonna, get him to comment, on some of his work, some of his activities, but most especially considering that the current government policy with regard to language in education is one of promoting or emphasizing English, and that English is to be taught, be used as language of instruction from grade 1, and emphasis goes to that. Clearly for someone who has, decided to invest so much of his intellectual activity, using the local languages, promoting Chichewa, etc., it must be something that derives from considerations that go beyond just what, the niceties of, official policy may be. So I want to, turn to him and, ask you this question. First off, thank you very much for, granting us this occasion.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, my question is, like I said, that considering that, in education here in Malawi, there still remains, and just like in many other African countries, especially those, if you call about the Anglophone, countries, there's still a fair amount of, emphasis on Western knowledge systems, and the use of, Western languages. You seem to have departed, from that by not just writing and promoting poetry in Chichewa. You actually translated Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, into Chichewa.
Yeah.
And last year when I visited you, you graciously gave me a copy of, Sianaso,
yes,
a collection of poetry in Chichewa, which I must admit is so good. When I went to England, my son-in-law, Jordan, he kept listening to that again and again. We drove, and I'm saying this seriously, we drove from Birmingham to York, you know, listening to that, and we laughed. It got to the stage when I said, I'm sure you're going to memorize all the lines. But what motivates you, or what motivated you to invest so much in the promotion of, you know, literary activity in your language at a time when everybody thinks, you know, attention, there must be more attention to, you know, especially English?
Thank you very much for that question, and I'm glad that the question has been asked by a reputable linguist, because I hope that in my response you will quickly identify with the kind of things I am going to say. To begin with, as I studied at the University of Malawi under your guidance and the guidance of other professors in your department, I realized that Chichewa as a language, compared to other languages, was just as expressive as any other language, and it depended on who was using it. If you had people who were fully conversant with it, using it, they could actually describe anything in that language that you can, you know, think of. And the privilege I've had growing up in this country is that my civil servant father, as you know, traveled quite, you know, a lot in the course of doing his clinical work. I had the privilege of being in Nkota in my mother's own district of Nchewu, where she originally came from. We lived in Kasungu, Doha, Lilongwe, and places like those. Such that and of course my father came from Chapananga, which is the Chinyanja speaking part of Chihuahua, and amazingly, even from the names of the people there are people like Nkadauluka, meaning if meaning if I had wings I would have, you know, flown, yeah. Abatsabonena, meaning Ipakama, she who provides even to her critics. Yeah. I absorbed all that, and coupled with what I encountered at the University of Malawi, I quickly realized as a university student that Chichewa or Chinyanja was just as expressive. Now, at the time I was there as a student, the temptation for most of those that were learning how to write was to imitate their professors in English and so on, because that was the dominant language at that time in which instruction was given to people. But what I decided to do was to do the opposite, to write in my local language with the discipline scholarship had inculcated in me, so that Malawians listening to my works would begin to see that depending on who was writing in that language, Chichewa works would be just as good as any other. I moved a step further later, the issue of translating things for apart. I enjoyed that story so much when I studied it as a student and when I taught it as a teacher at Zomba Catholic Secondary School. But as you remember, Achebe didn't write that story strictly in what you would call conventional English. Right. He was at pains to domesticate the English language to accommodate certain Igbo patterns that the ordinary Igbo would be able, even when reading the work in English, to identify with you know, those patterns. For example, there is a place where the author says that among the Igbos, proverbs were palm oil with which words were eaten. That's not a normal way an Englishman would speak. But we Africans can quickly identify with that way of communicating, because that's how our African languages describe things like those. So I said to myself that people regard this as one of the best novels that have ever come out of the African continent. And Waleshwa Inca went as far as saying that if you have not read Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, you have had incomplete education. Yeah, driven by that, I said, look, let me tackle the most popular novel, yeah, in my local language, so that the doubting Thomases can begin to see that that message can be carried by Chichewa equally competently. Such that, Prof, when we launched that book in the Little Theatre at Chancellor College in 2007, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, people came from all walks of life, back to the Little Theatre. Any newspaper of note was represented there. Any radio station of note was represented there. And what we did differently, that perhaps made the whole thing even more memorable, we deliberately went into the novel for those passages that are regarded as beautifully written, and then it chose the best readers of English I could come up with within the college. So they would read those memorable passages, and I would read the Chichewa version. And every time we finished the Chichewa version, the ovation we would get was indicative of the fact that people were actually acknowledging that, look, the Queen's language has indeed been domesticated, and it is serving us the way any other local language can serve us. And from that point onwards, I never looked back. That's why you will notice that although I occasionally write short stories in English and publish them in Ufaham for poetry, I have faithfully remained anchored in Chinyanja. And that's why I feel sorry sometimes when people say that from standard 1 we should start teaching our kids in English, when they have no idea what English is, and when at the moment in the country there aren't that many good teachers at primary school level who can teach English to kids the way it should be taught. Why we can't learn from the Japanese and the Chinese, who have made extraordinary strides in science and technology, because the complicated concepts have been taught to their children in a language they understand most, like Chinese and Japanese, and only later have they acquired English for purposes of engaging with the global village.
Actually, taking up on that, for a start, Chinua Achebe's thing for our part, I think it must rank amongst one of the most highly translated works. Yes. I think, yes. Because I recall when I joined Berkeley, it must have been a year or two later.
Yeah.
There was a professor who invited me to lunch,
yeah.
but mainly because she wanted, to get the phonetic transcription of some of the words in Chinua Achebe's, things for our part.
Yes, yes.
Because she was Korean and she was translating it into Korean. So you can, right. But anyway, just sort of to underscore the importance of what you did,
yes.
But sort of taking up as a final comment on the one that you just, finished off with about, the Japanese, the Chinese, teaching scientific concepts in the language that the kids, the children can understand, and that it's a consequence. They seem to have made more progress than we have.
Yeah.
All right. That turns out to be usually one of the arguments, and probably the most recurrent one, about not using African languages, because most people tend to say they are not good for science. They are not developed, whatever the concept of developing a language may mean. All right. But the idea that these languages are not suited, to, science education or science and math, etc. All right. Well, I know. What can you say about it?
That is a myth. That is a myth. Because I've flown on Kenya Airways. They say to you everything in Swahili perfectly. And some of the things they are able to say in Swahili are the ones people think are not easy to translate into a local language. They've gotten it wrong. It all boils down to, for example, if you want to develop terms that can be used in a pharmacology, it should be a matter of the linguists interacting with the pharmacologists to be helped to understand what the concepts in pharmacology are. In any case, our own traditional healers are pharmacologists in their own way. They may not be labeling things in the same way as the modern pharmacologists in English do, but they have got terms for the things they do in Chichewa. And if somebody were to understand pharmacology to the best of their ability, they would be able now to see that the equivalence of those terms in our local language are A, B, C, D. I'll give you an example. At the moment, actually, I am about to submit some work I was asked to do by the Reserve Bank on translating economic terms. And I accepted it again as a challenge, because I was saying I'll learn more about this economics through this translation. They were terms they explained in ordinary English from the technical economic jargon. And I began translating them. Initially, I thought it was going to be a daunting task. But the moment I began to understand what they had explained, when you're looking at the jargon that had been provided, I was coming up with Chichewa equivalents that were readily available. I wasn't inventing them. They were readily available, but I never knew you could use them like that until I was challenged by these technical terms. So those that say that our local languages cannot carry technical jargon in English are just being lazy. I'm just being lazy. I'm sure it requires a partnership of the experts in those terminologies interfacing with the capable linguists who then, after being told what these terms are in ordinary language, will then be able to find equivalents in the local language. And the Swahili comes to my mind as the first African example for that.
Yeah. In fact, just to conclude, a friend of mine is a Kenyan scholar, linguistics. We interacted. He was at Stanford, at the time that I, moved to Berkeley, and currently he's at Harvard.
Yes.
And he recently published a book. It's called The Story of Swahili.
Yes.
And it's incredibly lucid and readable, and it's a kind of a launch strategy. Yes. There was a panel discussion of the book, and I was invited. They sent me a copy of the book, and so I went to Harvard at the beginning of March. I talked about it, etc. But the reason that his work has come to mind is because he has tried to demonstrate just how a fair amount of the technical knowledge really was readily expressed in the languages, because people dealt with the things on a regular basis. So the terminology, evolved, and some of it from Swahili, others may have been adapted from maybe Arabic, but still, like the seafaring jargon was almost sort of homegrown. And and the thing is that your comment that those who believe that our languages are ill suited to the expression of science or math concepts are just being lazy. It's a comment that I hope many people come to take to heart and come to realize that the investment in their linguistic heritage should come from them. And it's not going to come from outside. And so with those comments, I really want to express my thanks for allowing me to come along and talk to you about this. It's a very important issue, and I think
you couldn't have thought of a better topic to engage in. I'm passionate about this. I hope the passion came out as I gave my responses to your questions.
I really want to say thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Zikomo.